Thank you for joining us. This is Phil Giorgiani. I'm the Senior Manager of Supplier Diversity at the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And thank you for joining us for our call on learning how to do business with the federal government. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what the NGLCC is doing to support businesses that are seeking to enter the federal procurement sphere or expand their footprint there, with a specific focus on our Washington Procurement Forum, which is a conference that's geared specifically on helping LGBTBEs achieve their federal contracting goals. So I am joined today by Sandra Carrington from the Director of the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization at the U.S. Department of Labor. So for those of you who don't know, major federal agencies usually have one of these offices, the OSDBU office, which assists those agencies in pursuing contracts and helps those agencies meet their goals in contracting with small businesses. So Sandra, are you there?
I sure am. Yes, I'm right here. Thank you for that very nice introduction.
Sure, no problem. So what we're going to do for the call today is I'm going to just give everyone a little bit of an overview of, what we're doing as an organization to support your success in federal contracting, and specifically talk a little bit about our Washington Procurement Forum and why it's important to attend if you're in this field. And then I'll turn it over to Sandra to talk a little bit about what she does specifically at the Department of Labor and the role of OSDBUs more generally. And then we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So to begin with, as most of you know, just to give you a little bit of a background, the NGLCC is really working right now to replicate the success that we've had in the private sphere on the federal contracting side. So right now, LGBT is not recognized as a specific category for spend with the federal government, as it is with women and minority and hub zone businesses and other categories. But we're working specifically with individual federal agencies to open up their procurement chains to certified LGBTBEs. Specifically, we have agreements with the Small Business Administration, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Commerce. So we're working closely with them to open up their channels for LGBTBEs looking to expand their footprint in federal contracting. And then we also have most importantly, coming up on November 20th and 21st, our Washington Procurement Forum. Specifically, what the forum usually entails the engagement of 15 or so federal agencies beyond the three that we have agreements with, that participate and that attend specifically to meet with certified LGBTBEs and to market to this diverse segment, or to offer the LGBT segment the opportunity to market to the federal government. So to give you all a little bit of an overview of what the Procurement Forum entails, it's 2 days. It's Thursday, November 20th and Friday, November 21st. Thursday, November 20th is focused on education for LGBTBEs. We have several panel sessions. One of them is they kind of cover the gamut of, in very broad strokes, what you need to know to be operating in the federal space. We have a panel on the fundamentals of marketing to federal agencies, the purpose of which is to educate LGBT-owned businesses on the opportunities within federal agencies just in general, which is, a pretty broad topic because generally federal government buys pretty much everything. But to discuss a little bit about the variety of cultures within each agency and things like effective networking strategies and building up your network and your referrals to move forward with obtaining those contracts. We have a session on forging partnerships. Now, for a lot of LGBTBEs that are either new to the space or that are a little bit smaller, sometimes, the exploration of forming teams or going into a joint venture with another small or medium enterprise is a good way to bid on a larger federal contract. There's also an array of subcontracting opportunities available to other LGBTBEs or other small businesses that are already primes to the federal government. So we're going to talk a little bit, and we'll have panelists that represent kind of the gamut, certified suppliers, federal agencies, and large corporations that are prime contractors to the federal government to talk about the various opportunities that exist along that procurement chain. We have a panel on contract administration, which is essentially once you get a federal contract, it's really important that you deliver on it, that you're very effective, because that's going to be used to kind of grade you and build up a reputation for you so that you'll be able to pursue, contracts, sustain your contracts on that project and pursue opportunities with other federal agencies as they come along. On Thursday, we'll also be having our agency table topics. This is something new we're doing this year. So essentially, they're open discussions held in small groups of LGBTBEs with key stakeholders from the federal agencies and large corporate partners on topics including business financing, prime contracting, subcontracting, joint ventures, and the format is a little bit different. So we'll have a small group of LGBTBEs that can have a discussion with these stakeholders, ask questions, kind of network with each other. And there'll be short but 20-minute discussions, and then you'll have the opportunity to move to a different table topic and switch and get to meet different stakeholders and have different discussions. So that's the education that we're making available on Thursday the 20th. Friday, November 21st, is our third annual Federal Procurement Fair. So the Federal Procurement Fair involves an hour of expo time where we'll have our federal agencies and corporate prime federal contractors manning exhibit booths, so you'll have an opportunity to network with them, learn a little bit about each agency and what opportunities are available with them. And then this year, as a new component, we're adding a matchmaker session. So these are going to be pre-scheduled one-on-one meetings with federal agencies and corporate prime federal contractors to discuss one-on-one, what your business goals are and what opportunities might lie with you in order to pursue business with those opportunities. So one thing that's very important, so registration, of course, for the forum is currently open. It's $3.99. If you're planning on attending the dinner, it's $3.99 to attend the dinner and the forum together, and $1.99 if you're interested in the forum only. In order to participate in the matchmakers, we're going to start the matches on November 3rd. So we're strongly encouraging people to register prior to October 29th or up to October 29th in order to participate in the forum and in the matchmaking sessions, which are a really powerful opportunity to make those face-to-face connections with representatives from federal agencies. So that is kind of an overview of what is going on at the procurement forum. And I just wanted to emphasize, so we'll have at the end of this call an opportunity for Q&A. So I'll open it up. I'll take it off lecture mode, and if you have any questions for Sandra and I, you can ask them. If you also want to email, if you prefer, you can email your questions to me at pgeorgiani@nglcc.org. You should have my email as I was corresponding with you for the RSVPs. And you can also send the questions to me by email, and I'll ask them. So that's an overview of what we're doing with the forum. And I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sandra to talk a little bit about her role and what she does within the OSDBU office of the Department of Labor, and just kind of generally how she works with small business owners.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pho. Thank you all for allowing me to take this time to speak with you and tell you about our role as OSDBUs, not just at the Department of Labor, but for all federal agencies. I can basically only speak on behalf of the Department of Labor, and what I would like for all of you to remember is we as OSDBUs, we consider ourselves the gateway to federal contracting. I think that that's probably one of the key areas that we would want all of our small business community to remember. We're your small business advocate. We help provide marketing strategies so that you can navigate through not only our forecasted opportunities, but opportunities that you may have heard through the grapevine, or opportunities that we may have gotten we may have gotten information on from the reviews that we do at each of our component agencies. I'm not sure how much of you are aware, but the OSDBU function is a very important one. It's the check and balance that all federal agencies need to have for the procurement process. We usually, at most agencies, depending on the threshold at the Department of Labor, it's at the simplified acquisition threshold. So all contract actions that are over $150,000 need to be reviewed by our OSDBU. And as such, what we're reviewing for is that what has the market basically dictated? How should this be set aside? How can we further restrict competition to ensure that there's appropriate small business representation and that we're maximizing opportunities for the small business community? So, with that, we have to take a lot of things into consideration, and in most cases, all of our offices have a wealth of contracting knowledge. Myself, I used to be a contracting officer for approximately 6 years. So with that knowledge of the federal procurement field, we're able to understand that very fine balance between ethics and also being your liaison to program offices that you want to get in front of and you really, need to market yourself to so that you can show us what your capabilities are. Amongst other areas, we also provide advice on procurement methods and procurement vehicles. And since we're doing this for our, federal program side, we also do this for our small business community as well. There's a lot of different steps that, you have to take as a small business to get engaged in federal contracting, and it can be very daunting, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help you through those different steps and make recommendations on how best to market yourself and get your foot in the door at the Department of Labor and other federal agencies. We also provide teaming recommendations and also provide information on contractors that may have done a really good job at labor and may be outgrowing certain type of socioeconomic categories where we need more representation under. So there can always be very good synergy there as well. We're, as I said before, your liaison to program offices, and we also do a lot of roundtable and training. So it's not just training on one side, for instance, training our agencies and procurement personnel how to best access you, but we're providing you training on how to best access our different program agencies. With that being said, I think I've pretty much covered the majority of our responsibilities, or at least the responsibilities that would be most important to you with this upcoming procurement conference. Phil, would you like to open up for Q&A now?
Yeah, absolutely. Although just one thing that you said that I was hoping maybe you can touch a little bit more on. So you talked a little bit about providing teaming recommendations.
Sure.
And I think that's really important and that's really interesting, especially for, some of our LGBTBEs who are coming into the space for the first time and are a little bit, green, or maybe aren't quite at the stage where they're able to service a prime contract for themselves. So how exactly does that work? What is the process for, acquiring that recommendation?
Absolutely. And I want to be very clear. A lot of it is just looking at the different types of marketing strategies we have. For instance, in any time that I'm going to make a recommendation for a possible teaming or partnership arrangement or subcontracting opportunity, we're looking at several things. We're looking at the forecast together. We're ensuring that our LGBTE community is also looking at the forecast and making recommendations to us as to who it is that they want to meet with and how we can best access them is some of the information that we'll provide to them. One of the great things about our forecast and sitting down and having that one-on-one experiences, being able to identify, okay, this is the incumbent contractor that we have doing this. You know what? We've heard great things. This guy's done really wonderful work here, but guess what? We believe they might be outgrowing, the 8A program, or let's say this has historically been set aside just for small businesses, and we're ready to further restrict possibly to the hub zone or service disabled community. I know of a service disabled company that's done work with us before, and this may be a great connection for you. There may be some synergy there. We also have to take into consideration the NAICS categories that we're providing advice on. You have to have that one-on-one interaction because there's a million different possibilities, and until we have that specific scenario or situation in front of us, it's kind of difficult to elaborate on it a little bit more. But again, like I was saying, NAICS categories, for instance, if we're thinking of an IT requirement and we have a company that provides a certain portion of the IT NAICS that we're looking at, maybe we can help them look at another IT company, whether it be through the dynamic small business search, whether it be through a past incumbent that we had worked with at the department before. There's several different scenarios and situations. It just depends on what's of interest to the contractor that we're speaking to.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's I think really critical information. So I'm going to go ahead and turn lecture mode off. Voila. So I know we have a pretty robust group on the line. Does anyone have any questions regarding anything we've talked about, the procurement forum itself, or just generally doing business with the federal government and working through OSDBU offices?
Yeah.
Terry Aiken. Go ahead.
Oh. So, Cray, was that you?
This is Kerry Aiken. I had a question to follow up. Maybe you all can give us some direction. Our NAIC code is very vague. The UNSPC code is specific, as is the NIGP code, but those don't seem to appear in the SAMs. Might you have any suggestions on that? I know it's a very technical question to start with, but it's one that I have anyway.
Sure. Phil, would you like me to take that?
Yeah, sure, if you're able to.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm exactly able to. The unfortunate reality is that we do work in this world of NAICS codes being the go-to code, especially because it's what is registered in SAM and what allows us to also report in the Federal Procurement Data System. My suggestion is to always keep those other codes in mind when trying to market yourself, number one, to your small business advocate at a federal agency such as myself. That way we can kind of try to identify and, like you said, yes, the NAICS code is it covers a lot of different areas. If there's a specialty that you want to focus on, in order to focus on that specialty, it's just important for you to bring that up to us from the beginning, from the inception of that conversation. That way we can best guide you as to where the next place is to market to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I don't think that. I think unfortunately that's kind of. I think that's something that you need to, as use in your conversation to kind of go forward in describing your business to your advocate.
But as and if I may just add to that one more time. OSDBUs, we're subject matter experts of the small business community and the small business mission overall and procurement. That's essentially our subject matter expertise. The fact that you know the specialty and the specifics of your trade, and you're able to apply that to the mission that you're trying to market yourself to, that's what's really going to set you, I would say, above and beyond and in the forefront of these different program officers. You're going to leave your footprint with them. They're actually going to see, you know what, this is somebody that knows their business, that knows what they're doing. So it's great that you know that information. The unfortunate reality is it's not going I don't see any additional areas being added to SAM or to the Federal Procurement Data System, and that's what really dictates how we function within the procurement world.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
In the past, we've never really figured out, as a media company, how we might work with the federal government. But am I understanding your speaker that if we were to call the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business at the Department of Labor, someone would be on the phone to be able to help us, direct us to where we might begin the process? Is that what I'm understanding?
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely the case. We're supposed to be your gateway into federal contracting. We're that first, step that you take just to be able to know how to navigate through all the different agencies and the different programs that we have.
It will help us sign contracts.
Pardon me, what was that question?
The LGBT. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Phil, I can't hear that question. Did you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Was that a question for the call, or is that might have just been background noise?
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
I don't know.
Okay.
I heard it too, but I wasn't sure. To reiterate that, the OSDBUs are your gateway, and they're your first stop shop along with your local SBA field office to finding out exactly how, what opportunities there are for you. And virtually every commodity area is a potential, product that the federal government is purchasing. And one of the reasons that the procurement forum is so important, and we put effort into gathering these agencies together, is that it gives you an opportunity to build, to have that face time with officers from these agencies to have a more kind of in-depth conversation about where you might go with your federal contracting goals.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you.
And I'm sorry, who was that asked that question?
Bill Manuel with Real Gay Television.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Kathy. So we're registered with SAM and with the SBA, but for the Department of Labor, is there anything that we should be registering or connecting?
That's a great question. You're wondering whether or not we have a repository that...
Right.
Right. No, actually, there's no repository that we have. At one time, we were maintaining a repository of professional hub zone service companies, and that was associated to, as many of you may know, most of federal agencies have not been able to meet the hub zone goal. So one of our strategies was to, especially within the professional service arena, what we find a lot with hub zone companies is they do a lot of work in the construction area, and different areas like that. And so what we did was we held a repository for a little bit of time to at least get an idea of the local professional service hub zone companies. And once that grew too large, we found that it wasn't exactly meeting our needs. It wasn't helping us identify specific, hub zone contractors that we could make recommendations to our contracting officers on specific requirements. So, no, to answer your question, we don't have a repository, but what we do try to keep on hand is your information once you've met with us.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. We a few years ago got a GSA contract schedule, and we, got a blanket purchase agreement that we're sort of working through now. So I have a couple of questions. One is the current status of firm fixed price contracts versus the IDIQ, and as far as small disadvantaged business officer goes, we've called several times but haven't been able to locate someone to specifically work with us, like you're saying, as a gateway to finding opportunities. Most of our opportunities are coming through e-buy, and then there are what we're learning over the course of the last 2-3 years is that a lot of the stuff you see on FedBizOps, and you may know, Sandra, if this is true or not, but what I'm sort of been told several times kind of unofficially is that a lot of those contracts are tailored to a specific vendor that the buyer wants, so that in a sense the parameters, the SOW is made so that it tips the scale toward the vendor that the buyer wants. I mean, part of me thinks that that's just basic human nature. I mean, you get somebody doing a good job for you, and you would like them to keep doing that. So.
Well, you've made a couple of points. First, I'm going to address the point in reference to incumbent contractors possibly having an advantage over other contractors. It's a reality in that if you have an incumbent contractor that does a great job, you definitely don't want to lose them. I would disagree in that a statement of work is usually designed to tip, at least I can speak for the Department of Labor, to tip the scale, for an incumbent contractor versus a contractor that may not have had work with the department before. And the reason I say that is we have a pretty good check and balance system at the Department of Labor. Just to give you a little more information on DOL, which I'm sure we'll get more in depth when we see each other at the procurement conference. But our procurement office is separate from our program office, and that's very different than, I would say, the structure that I've seen in a lot of other federal agencies. And
I'm sorry, could I just what's the difference between the program office and the procurement office?
Sure. Okay. So a program office is basically your subject matter experts. They're the ones that are in charge of putting together the statement of work. They're the ones that would be designated as a core, a contracting officer's representative. So the function of that program, for example, let's say OSHA, something for our Occupational Safety and Health Administration. We have a program person in OSHA who's responsible, let's say, for some type of IT effort, just to make this easier for me right now. And they would have to go to the Office of Procurement Services, which is an OPS, Office of Procurement Services. It's in a completely different agency. It's under the Office of Administration and Management. So they would have to go to them to have that requirement procured, which means their contracting officer, their contracting specialist would review that statement of work and make sure that there isn't anything that's biased or that there isn't anything in that statement of work that would be additional burden. Like, for instance, has to have had experience with the Department of Labor or has to have had experience in a specific, executive order, policy, or legislation.
Really? Okay, because we run into that a lot, that there are a lot of that you have to be able.
And that's something that I think is special about the Department of Labor. Again, I can speak only to the Department of Labor because I've been here for at least 15 years and was a contracting officer in the specific office that I'm talking about. So these contracting officers, they're subject matter experts of procurement. And analyzing, what comes in through the budget and analyzing and reviewing what it is that, their panel members, that they basically manage, what it is that they're putting together for their, SOW review or, solicitation review. With that in mind, that's why I would disagree with the idea of, all federal agencies have, this hidden agenda of trying to go to their incumbent contractors. But what I wanted to bring up in addition to that is in order to safeguard ourselves from that, and when I say us, ourselves, I mean you, the LGBTE community, and us, the OSDBUs, is we need to sit down together and we need to look at the forecast of opportunities, and we need to identify requirements that are, for instance, just set aside for the small business community. How can we possibly further restrict those? Or the ones that are unrestricted, how can we further restrict those? It doesn't matter whether or not the incumbent's doing a good job. What matters is that we're trying to support the small business community and meeting, legislated goals that we have in place. So with that in mind, I also, based on that, you need to also take into consideration that there's some contractors that have gotten very rich off of, several contracts, and they may not be able to compete for them, for another round. And that's just based on, for instance, contractors that have outgrown the 8A program or contractors that have outgrown the small business program as a whole. So those are the things that we want to stay in tune with and look into and really keep up with.
Okay, just not to grind too fine a point on it, but I hadn't intended to say exactly incumbent only. Although we do run into that. What I'm learning is that often, in order to get a contract, one needs to meet with a purchasing officer, an agency, to understand their needs and to, like we do with any other client, to kind of pitch how we might help with this or that need once we identify one. And then, although the company doing that may not be an incumbent, it's someone who the agency may naturally want to work with, and I wonder if that's a kind of a strategy that we should pursue with given our limited time and means,
No, absolutely. I think it is one strategy, but it's something that we need to keep in mind is getting in front of these program offices and even getting in front of OSDBUs. That's just a part of the process as a whole. I don't know of that many program offices that have, for instance, said, you know what, I can probably count on my hand the amount of 8A sole source contract opportunities that I've seen happen like that, where a company comes in and markets themselves and, they hit it off and they decide to go ahead and move forward with an award. That would very rarely happen, and I would say usually towards the end of the fiscal year. It's probably most important to just really focus on, okay, strategizing. Where am I going to market myself? Where does their mission fit best into my capabilities? And how can I best market myself in front of them so that we don't waste time and so that I leave an impression that will make them want to come back to me, that will make them know that I'm a viable source to be considered within a competitive, action. And before I forget, I wanted to ask you, what schedule are you on? Because that's a big triumph in itself.
541-4B.
Okay, see? The fact that you have, and I just wanted to share this with everyone, labor is a little bit different from other agencies, but a lot of the civilian agencies, we rely heavily on competing on GSA, and that's just because of the order of precedence that we have to abide by when, using different procurement methods. And GSA happens to be one of those top priorities. So kudos to you for maintaining your GSA schedule, and you're absolutely right. A lot of efforts come out on e-buy, but don't be leery about those efforts, especially, I would say, towards the last 4 months of the fiscal year that come out with a short period of time to, turn it around and respond to those solicitations. I've heard, from the community many times, oh, that's got to be set up for somebody. There's no way. Why would they have like a 2-week or a 1-week response if they really wanted competition?
Yeah, that's a very difficult hurdle to jump because, for those on the call who might not know, I don't know what their obligation is, but we've seen solicitations up for literally just days before, and we're talking about, quite a bit of work going into making a bid, especially given that the person writing the SOW often doesn't really know what goes into the process, so that you sort of have to get your questions in to sort out the specific parameters so that you can be competitive,
No, absolutely. Even in putting the questions together, that takes a lot of time and resources that you could be expending elsewhere. It's an unfortunate reality, but what I want to say about that is 9 times out of 10, at least at the Department of Labor, I know that at the end of the year, almost every single time that we did a quick GSA schedule competition, there was no contractor in mind for award. And the reason I know this is because I work very closely with the procurement office, and even if I'm not close to the program office, you just know this because, for instance, the way that if we don't spend our money by the end of the year, that's it. We lose it. So it's a matter of this is...
The end of the year is September?
Yes, September 30th.
Right, okay.
So if we don't spend the budget by September 30th, then that's money that's lost, and it would be the end of the world for many programs as we know it here at Labor. So they have to find a way to award it, and they can't do everything on 8A. They have to actually try to compete some things, and so that's why you see a lot of that. At least that's historically what's happened here at Labor.
Are there any preferences given to, in our particular case, we're certified by National Minority Supplier Development Council and also by NGLCC, but we're finding at least on e-buy and on some of the, it looks like on most of the things on Fed BizOps that there's no, there don't seem to be projects that are earmarked for that designation, other than just small business, grouped all together under small business, meaning women-owned, minority, veteran, disabled, and so forth.
Yeah, so currently the certified LGBTBE designation is not recognized as such the way that minority and women-owned businesses are. That's something that, again, this is part of kind of the movement that we're building, and this is what the procurement forum is kind of all about, is creating, if there's greater connection between the LGBT business community and the agencies, and that kind of helps us push the ball forward in terms of working with these agencies to get those partnerships off the ground. But we don't, and we encourage you to use any other, minority designation that you have. If you're women-owned or certified minority-owned or in a hub zone or just your small business status. But we're still kind of at the tip of the spear in terms of getting to that same point.
And what I'm finding is that even with the minority designation, we're not competing against only other minority-owned businesses. We're competing against a variety of agencies. So I wonder if there's a place, some area, and maybe this is something, I don't want to hog up the time here, but if there's some place, it's like a maze inside a labyrinth when you get into this, trying to locate. So, I want to kind of take advantage of the moment here and ask if there's a special place where someone with our designation, many of the people here on the call might better spend our focus,
Sure. Well, that's kind of the focus of the procurement. That's why we have the procurement forum, because the LGBTBE designation isn't recognized kind of generally when you're navigating the system, when you're getting on the schedules. But if you attend the forum, then the agencies that are there are specifically there to meet with LGBT-owned businesses, so you can at least make those connections. So that's the channel that we're opening.
Okay. Well, listen, I won't keep hogging the time here. I have a couple of other questions jotted down, but I'll defer to the others on the call.
Okay, and if you want to give me, I'm sorry, who is this?
This is Gavin at Blue Peach.
Oh, okay, Gavin. I thought it might be you. Yeah, we can chat afterwards.
Some of the questions are for Sandra, so I'll maybe I can forward them to you to get to her.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Can I ask you a question, please? This is Ed Mofrat.
Yes.
Okay, my question. Hi, Phil. Thank you for putting this together, and to your colleagues also. My question is, we are an accounting firm. We are a CPA firm. We are, of course, NGLCC certified.
And in the past, whether through avenues available through NGLCC or other avenues, every time I've tried to reach for government contracts, and we have been trying for a while, what we do is taxation, bookkeeping, payroll, business valuation, accounting in general. What they've told us is that a lot of these large contractors have their own internal, accounting departments who handle this. So my question is there a realistic hope for us to actually get even a subcontract, even anything, doing what we do? We don't really have any products to sell. We have services. And do you think there's a realistic chance of us? In other words, is it worth for us to make a pilgrimage from L.A., where we are, to D.C. for this conference? In the past, we haven't been able to find anything.
Well, kind of, and Sandra, you can give your perspective on this too. I mean, in terms of accounting and bookkeeping services, certainly a lot of agencies do use large firms for that. That being said, there still could be opportunities, subcontracting for them if you have a specialty. And then again, there are, certain, I assume that service is included within the targets that federal agencies need to meet with their small business spend. So there might be a specific program or project that is in need of, and this is kind of just off the top of my head, and Sandra can speak better to whether this is the case with the Department of Labor. There might be a specific project that needs a smaller bookkeeping or accounting service that's separate from maybe what the full agency is using. But I would say that I wouldn't write that commodity off as something that's not purchased.
Right. Well, and not just that. And this is Sandra chiming in here.
Hi, Sandra.
Hi. Yes, I do want to be very clear that it may be difficult depending on, what level, but it's not impossible because all of our federal agencies, civilian or non-civilian, we have accounting and bookkeeping needs. It's just a matter of finding the right agency for you to target. And in addition to that, what I would really say is what better network for you to be a part of when your services can essentially be provided to every single contractor within the LGBTE community that will be attending.
So you do think it's worthwhile for us to attend?
I would say I don't like to make those types of decisions for anyone, but I would say yes. It's a networking opportunity where you're not only learning about federal agency opportunities, but there's also subcontracting opportunities, and within the prime contracts that federal agencies have, in addition to peers being possible opportunities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to kind of backtrack, so we're obviously very excited about the expo and the matchmaking and the opportunities that you'll have to meet face to face with Sandra and her counterparts at other agencies. In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we have the education sessions the day before, which are really focused on determining and learning about where you fit into those procurement chains and exactly how it works. So I definitely think it's worthwhile for attending. If you're interested in finding out about that space, one preliminary step you might want to take is visiting your local SBA field office and speaking to them a little bit about your commodity because they can advise you too.
All right. Thank you both, Sandra and Phil.
Sure. Does anyone else have any questions?
Well, I had a question about if we have time for, firm fixed price versus IDIQ.
Sure. I'm not. Those are the different codes you're referring to?
No, procurement types.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No problem. They're contract types. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I mean, we run into so many of the firm fixed price contracts, and it's very easy to get into some trouble with those because often the parameters are not solid, and but the delivery is. So you might get in a situation where you're delivering far above what your initial bid was, whereas the IDIQ, the indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity type of contract, you're actually getting paid the prices that are listed on your schedule. So just wondered if Sandra might know if that's something other people sort of struggle with, and what the status of that may be. Is that an ongoing thing, or is there any kind of pushback?
No, it's definitely an ongoing thing, and as far as pushback is concerned, that's a difficult one to answer, and the rationale behind that is OMB, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, has essentially given directives to all the federal agencies to ensure that we work towards all of our requirements being firm fixed price, because it's a safer type of contract for, the federal environment, for us government employees. And bearing that in mind, it really depends. You want to try and find those agencies that are IDIQ friendly, that are GSA schedule friendly, because a lot of times what I've seen is you'll even see efforts where they call them firm fixed price, but they're really basing this firm fixed price off of a labor hour category estimate. That's either on GSA or a break is being given off of GSA. So it's an ongoing issue. Yes, the majority of federal agencies are working towards, having firm fixed price requirements. It's more of the standard. It depends on what agency you're working with, and also the type of service or commodity that you're providing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I feel like the gentleman who spoke before, whose business is accounting, and for our business, for others who do service, who provide services, it's very difficult to work on a firm fixed price, because although it's understandable the government may want to have a firm fixed price on, can you do the accounting for this fiscal year? Well, okay, so you put a bid together. There may be any number of, I know in my business there are any number of curveballs that may arise during the period of the contract that would cause you to spend more time and resources on fulfilling the project. So that's difficult to do once you've already committed to the bottom line price.
And I absolutely understand that, especially when you're trying to be competitive.
Exactly, right. It's a little different if you're selling like nuts and bolts, and you're a fourth of a cent cheaper on this particular bolt than the next guy, and it has the same kind of, Yeah, no,
I understand. The biggest recommendation is pick those agencies, as far as like responding to solicitations that maybe aren't, that are more IDIQ friendly, and don't. It's a difficult one to answer, just because there is no right answer. It's one of those gray areas where you have to, take best judgment and say, is this an agency that I want to go after? Does this, is this solicitation, was it put together in a sound way where it seems like I'll be able to accomplish everything that I'm basically, bidding to, proposing to? So it's a difficult one.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all for participating. A special thank you to Sanja from the Department of Labor. Thank you for sharing your insight with us. Again, if you have, I'll send some follow-up notes from the call with information about registering for the Washington Procurement Forum. If you have any questions about the event, either logistical or content-wise, I encourage you to share them with me. And we look forward to seeing you in D.C. next month. Thank you.